From Northeast State Studios in Blountville, Tennessee, this is Views of the SEC. And welcome to Views of the SEC. Trey Adams alongside Adam Benefiel, where we are talking all SEC football. What an interesting week of college football. Adam, did you watch any games this weekend?
Yeah, I watched one.
Which game was it?
Auburn and Arkansas.
That was a beatdown. Wow.
That was really funny to watch. I kind of felt bad for Arkansas, but in all seriousness, now I watched the A&M Alabama game, and that made me mad.
I was pulling for A&M. My inner Tennessee fan needs Alabama to lose, but just wow. I mean, for a short amount of time, I really thought A&M was going to, give Alabama a run for their money, but at the end of the day, they just could not hang with Alabama. So just reviewing for Week 8, Alabama, of course, takes control over the SEC West with a 33-14 victory over Texas A&M. Auburn destroys Arkansas 56-3 and moves in a tie for second, gunning for the lead in the SEC West. LSU scores major home victory against the struggling Ole Miss Rebels. The Rebels, of course, now 3-4. Real quick, just take us back here. What are some of the most important events this weekend moving forward for the SEC?
Well, real quick, looking beyond the A&M Alabama game, I think that LSU looks kind of terrifying now that they have an offense. This is the third straight game that they've set some sort of school record. They had their largest offensive output 3 weeks ago. They had their best yards per play 2 weeks ago, and then they had Leonard Fournette go for 280 on the ground, which was the single game record for rushing. But going back to A&M Alabama, I got to get this off my chest. I'm happy with the way A&M played. For the players' sake, I think that they played well. They played hard. And I think you're right. I think that there was a time where you kind of looked like, A&M kind of has a chance here. But what ultimately doomed them was, they had one really bad turnover. But even then, that only made it a 2-score game. But what really upset me was offensively, they wasted the entire first quarter running perimeter runs, perimeter passing, and you're not going to beat Alabama that way. In their 2 scoring drives, they started finally throwing the ball down the field, which opened up the run on the read option. And I don't know why they went away from that. I don't know why. If you're going against a really good team, if you're going against the best team in the country, probably the best defense in the country, if you play conservatively, you're going to lose. So why not go for it? If you lose by 40, it's the same as losing by 10.
Yeah, it's a loss either way.
It's a loss either way, so go for it. That's the Alabama's the one weakness that they have is they give up big plays.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that Ole Miss did last year. I mean, they absolutely they went berserk on offense, and that's how they beat Alabama. So, just real quick, give me your thoughts on Auburn beating Arkansas 56-3. I did not see that coming.
I really didn't either. I actually didn't get into the game until probably midway to 3/4 of the way through the first half, just because of the A&M game. But that was probably one of the worst losses for Arkansas that they've ever had. I mean, that was terrible. I mean, Auburn threw the ball 12 times. They didn't really even have to do that because they put up almost 600 yards on the ground. That was just an absolute beatdown.
Definitely. So let's take a look at the SEC standings. Florida, of course, sits in first in the East. How about Kentucky? They're sitting in second in the SEC East with their victory over Mississippi State this weekend. Alabama sits in first in the West. It's a 3-way tie for second right now. LSU, Texas A&M, and Auburn, all 3 gunning for that position. The SEC Player of the Week is Leonard Fournette, running back for LSU. Welcome back, Leonard Fournette. Wow, what a performance. In his first game back from a month-long absence due to injury, Fournette ripped his way through the Ole Miss defense, collecting a school record 284 yards and 3 touchdowns with only 16 carries. This was Fournette's 5th 200-yard game of his career, as well as the 5th time he has scored 3 touchdowns or more in a game. So congratulations to Leonard Fournette on a successful return and an absolutely exhilarating performance. So let's move on to the game of the week. It is Florida versus Georgia. otherwise known as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I refuse to go by the new nickname, the River City Showdown. I refuse to go by that nickname. Looking at this, it's a CBS 3:30 kickoff. Important game for the SEC East. Both of these teams coming off a bye week. Florida has won the last two in this series. Tell me, Adam, what's going to happen this weekend?
I really don't know. I don't think these two teams are particularly good. Florida is better, but I think that I don't think that they're going to put up a whole lot of noise. They do have a chance if they win out, and maybe Tennessee drops another game or something crazy happens. But they do have a chance to win the East. But to be honest, I'm really not that excited about this game.
It's, in years past, this game meant a lot more to the SEC East. I mean, it's still important because if Florida loses, that opens the door for Tennessee and Kentucky. Mm-hmm. You look at the Georgia Bulldogs, they have a stagnant offense right now in the last couple weeks. It really needs to get going, and they're going to be going up against one of the best defenses in the country. Of course, Jalen Tabor, Quincy Wilson. A lot of Florida's defense is just absolutely vicious. What has Georgia got to do to be able to move the ball successfully against what many people consider to be one of the best defenses in the SEC?
They got to open up the playbook. I mean, very, very similar train of thought for a lot of times whenever you go up against a great defense or if you go up against a team that's superior, you have to go for it. This is really a much bigger problem in the NFL than it is in college, but still it happens in college more than I like. But whenever you're not expected to win or whenever you're going up against a team that has a talent advantage over you, you have to go for it. You have to try to win. Like, if a loss is a loss regardless of how much you lose by. And so I think having a freshman quarterback, that's going to be tough against Florida's defense. Not really having the greatest running game this year despite having Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. You have to open it up. You have to make Florida respect the pass. Mm-hmm. And that's how you can open up. That's how you can get their defense from stacking the box against the running game. And at a certain point, you're going to have to win a game with Jacob Eason.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest issues that I've seen for Georgia is their inexperienced offensive line. I mean, if Georgia's offensive line was even remotely veteran, Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel could have dream seasons, and Georgia's run game could pretty much carry the Bulldogs to an SEC championship without really having to rely on Jacob Eason, being the true freshman that he is, to have to throw the ball 40 times. This is another issue that I'm going to have with Georgia, Jacob Eason being a true freshman quarterback going against one of the best secondaries in college football, Jalen Tabor, Quincy Wilson. The Gator defense has forced 10 interceptions so far. I think they returned 2 of them back against Missouri. It's going to be trouble for Georgia if they cannot find a way to move the ball. So we've talked about it. We've analyzed it. Give me your prediction on the Florida-Georgia game.
I think it's going to be close for a while. It definitely helps Florida that Luke Del Rio's back. But I think ultimately Florida is going to put the clamps on Georgia's offense. So I'll take Florida 34-20.
I'm kind of similar to your prediction. I've got Florida 31-10 over the Bulldogs. I just think the Gator defense will be too much for the Bulldogs, especially Florida facing a freshman quarterback in a heated rivalry that always produces exciting games, exciting moments. I think that the Gator defense is going to force multiple turnovers that will result for easy touchdowns for Luke Del Rio and company. So look for Florida to win this game and move one step closer to perhaps repeat to go to the SEC championship. The other game of interest this weekend, Auburn versus Ole Miss. Of course, Auburn is off to a 5-1 start as they go on the road to Oxford to face a struggling Ole Miss team. What is some of your concerns with Ole Miss right now? I mean, they have had a very difficult stretch. The SEC West is one of the toughest parts of the conference in college football. I mean, what does Ole Miss need to do to get back to their winning ways?
Well, they need to stop the run. If you go back from last year to this year, I think that's one of the biggest drop-offs from a particular unit in probably all of college football. I mean, their run defense was very above average. I won't say it was great last year, but it was pretty good. This year, it's terrible. And just looking at the way that Auburn's playing right now and the way that they like to play, which is run the ball and throw only if we have to, just to keep you honest, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster right there for Ole Miss. They have a great offense. Chad Kelly he floats anywhere from really good to what are you doing sometimes in the course of the same drive.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Ole Miss is going to be able to stop Auburn. And, I guess it's to the point that maybe just Ole Miss just really isn't that good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it comes down to last week. I mean, they struggled with the LSU run game. I mean, Leonard Fournette, of course, him being one of the best running backs in college football, absolutely torched them. I mean, we talked about it, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. Darius Geis also had a really good game. So give me your prediction on this game.
I don't think it's going to be that close. I think it's going to give me Auburn 38-14.
I think I'll agree with you there. Give me Auburn 38-14 as well. Look for Cameron Petaway, a great player for the Tigers. Look for them to absolutely play very well against the Rebels. Auburn defense is playing very good as well. That's another thing to mention. And just Ole Miss right now is just very shaky. Look for Auburn to roll. So moving on to the final part of the show, the prediction side, Kentucky versus Missouri. Kentucky.
What, they have 4 straight wins now?
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky,
Watch
man.
out.
I mean, I can't believe at the beginning of the season we kind of talked about it and we were like, I don't know about Kentucky. But hey, whatever works.
Yeah.
If you got to score 1 million points to win a game and you got to give up 999,000, do whatever makes you happy.
Yep. I will say one of these teams did not lose to Middle Tennessee State on homecoming, so I'll take Kentucky.
That's a good point. Kentucky, I mean, they've been starting to roll. They've been starting to get together. They're not that great of a football team, but they'll be good enough this week to beat Missouri.
And if they can get a bowl game, that would be awesome for them. Like, I don't really feel one way or the other about Kentucky. Like, my team's been in the SEC for 5 years now, so it's kind of some of the teams that we haven't played or don't have a history with. Like, I don't feel one way or the other. But just for Kentucky's sake, I hope that they get a bowl game. Like, that'd be good for them.
I got Kentucky winning 35-14 over Missouri. I was going to say, you probably hate them more for basketball than football.
Yeah, but we won the SEC last year in basketball.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Moving on to Mississippi State versus Samford. I mean, Mississippi State, they're just not that good.
They're terrible.
I mean, I don't know what happened between last year and this year, but
I'll say probably Dak Prescott, leader of the Dallas Cowboys,
that's a good
has
point.
something to do with it.
Yeah. So just give me your prediction on this game.
14-13 Mississippi State.
My prediction's pretty close. I've got Mississippi State 17-10 over Samford. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
they're so bad.
It's just no words. Moving on to Tennessee versus South Carolina, the Volunteers trying to get back, trying to get healthy again. Most of the players that were injured for the Alabama game will be back, minus Alvin Kamara, Khalil McKenzie, and a few others. But guys like Darren Kirkland Jr. should be back. Just give me your prediction on this one.
South Carolina has been steadily improving. Like, they don't look quite as bad as they did at the beginning of the season, but I'm still going to take Tennessee. I'll take Tennessee 28-7.
I got Tennessee 31-17. It's going to be a tough environment in Columbia, but I think the Volunteers will play well enough to get the victory. And moving on to the last game, Texas A&M versus New Mexico State.
Aggie on Aggie. Give me Aggie.
You got it. 46-7, Texas A&M. That does it for the views of the SEC. Until next week, for Adam Benefiel, I'm Trey Adams signing off. Goodbye, and we'll see you next week.
This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College and is produced as part of the Student Learning Experience. The content of this program is produced through student participation and does not necessarily reflect the opinions and views held by the school.
The music today was provided by Jason Shaw at audioaudix.com.